Welcome to Corporate Caffeine. I'm Dacia Coffee. As a chief marketing officer, speaker, author, copywriter, and 3-time entrepreneur, I've learned a thing or two about influence and impact in the business world. So I want to share with you what I've learned about how to be heard, be seen, and be successful, and introduce you to the people I've met along the way who learned how to unlock their potential.
Welcome to Corporate Caffeine. Today, we are being joined by Nicole Rush. She is the principal at Catalytics, and she's a strategist for companies seeking transformation. Now, it might be towards a bold vision of the future, or it might be a practical evolution of what a company is supposed to be in this changing world. But Nicole brings a major passion for social impact as her through line across all of her work. I think you're going to really enjoy the interesting things that she has to say about business and where the future of business is going. Let's jump in.
Nicole, I'm so excited to have you on Corporate Caffeine today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, I'm glad to be here.
So how's today going for you?
Pretty well, yeah.
You've got your caffeine.
Yes.
So you're definitely themed.
In hand.
Exactly. I love it. Well, Why don't you give everybody a little bit of insight into your background? Kind of who are you so that they have an idea of why we did invite you on here.
Okay, sure. Well, yes, I have an interesting background that's a mix of both nonprofit and for-profit.
Yeah.
So I spent about a decade doing, revenue leadership for a nonprofit agency that also included a social enterprise for an organization that grew from about 9 million annual revenue to 45 million.
So exciting.
So that kind of gave me the bug,
Yes.
the growth bug. So then I entered a role where I was interfacing with leaders across the nation, and I started to realize how difficult and a lot of the challenges that nonprofit leaders and other leaders faced.
Yes.
So through that, I decided to take the leap, I did an MBA through the Kellogg School of Management and then started my own consulting firm to really just help leaders with that growth phase that they want to enter.
Yeah.
So it's very fun and exciting work.
It is fun. So do you primarily focus on nonprofit? You and I have worked a little bit together on for-profit, but tell me what the balance looks like. Who are you helping nowadays?
Right. I would say we help anybody who's relatively small in a phase where they want to grow. So historically, because of my background in fundraising, it has been predominantly nonprofits, but since going through the program at Kellogg, I've taken on more small businesses. And it's very interesting how much they have in common, because really the only difference is that the nonprofits are tax exempt, but they still have a lot of the same revenue producing challenges.
That was going to be one of my questions is what are the big differences and how do they approach them differently in marketing? But you're saying they're pretty much aligned?
They have a lot more in common than you might think. So I think without getting into too much detail, the challenges that nonprofits face is that they have a two-sided market. So they have donors that make contributions, but then they also need to make sure that they're aligned with the needs and frustrations and pain points of the constituents that they're serving. So they have to think in two ways.
Right.
If you think about a hospital, it's the same kind of way, right? They have the insurance companies who actually pay the checks and then the patients who come to the hospital. But a lot of the marketing principles really cross over between the two.
Crossover in regards to business, though, right? Not so much business to consumer alignment? Or do you think it's both?
I think the business to consumer approach really comes when they are looking at the constituents that they're serving,
Good
right?
point. Yeah.
So one of my clients works in a community and they're focused on early childhood education, and they have to think about not just the reason why a Nobel Prize laureate says that early education makes sense. They need to think about why does that parent, why would it matter to them? If it's not something that they really are aware is a kind of a need or something that will be meaningful to them later. So it's got its own unique challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I work with nonprofits, but almost always on the volunteer side, right?
Okay,
like sitting on boards and that kind of thing. But I tell you what, some of the most complex scenarios that I've ever been a part of have been on the nonprofit because of what you're talking about. I mean, there was this one time we're doing a whiteboard and I'm leading a board initiative to help everybody understand the strategic plan, how we organize it. 12 buyer personas. That is unheard of compared to the normal work I do, which is on average 3 to 4.
Okay.
12 legitimate ones that needed to be juggled and taken care of and had to have individual plans and strategies. I was thinking, wow, this is not for the faint of heart.
Yes, and with much of the time, it's very constrained in terms of the resource allocation that's put towards it as well. So that makes it challenging too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, you kind of hit on it, but really there's this heartbeat, if you will, of social impact that has run throughout your career. So,
yes.
I mean, is that who you are? Is that how you see the world? Is it serendipity, where that's just where you've been led and where your strengths came out? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I think, I grew up, as a person of faith all throughout my childhood. So I think that does really inform how I see the world. So,
Totally.
I know it's kind of complicated in this day and age to talk about faith and business, but
You're on the right podcast, though.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Not
I don't know if you
complicated here.
know us yet or not, or researched us, but we're not
seems to come
shy
up.
about that.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's cool.
It is
Yeah.
cool, I know.
Yeah. So I guess, the way I see people is, as a creation of God that both has innate dignity and worth, as well as this kind of innate beauty and strength that's just waiting to be untapped and unlocked, right? So, because I see people that way innately, I feel like that just transfers to the way that I see opportunities and also, engage with people too, right? So some of my coaching clients, it makes a big difference if the way you're oriented towards them is you have something kind of specially crafted inside of you that's just waiting to be unleashed. I think that makes a big difference as opposed to being kind of deficit focused or
huge.
performance metric focused or something along those lines. So, so I would say that kind of is woven throughout a lot of just the projects and the way that I engage with
Awesome. It's
clients.
like having a second set of eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're a huge set of eyes if you look at it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so cool because, like you said, you're not focusing on the deficit, but instead it's almost like you're always aware there's treasure and you just get to polish those diamonds and uncover them and go, okay, what do we do with this versus where do we get the resources? How do we figure this out? I love that.
Right.
It's much more optimistic point of view than maybe the status quo is.
Yeah.
So, okay, tell us more, especially our audience about your current business, Social Catalytics. So tell, where did that get founded? And I'm definitely going to reverse engineer this back to your MBA, but because I have so many curiosity questions about that. But
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your current business.
Yeah, sure. So I started Social Catalytics, I guess it's a bit over 3 years ago now when I decided to take the leap I told you about before. And really what we focus on are helping organizations or companies to take a dream that they have of growth and just bring that to reality. So, I think a lot of times, when you have an organization, it's helpful for me to think about it as a kind of like an ecosystem. Yeah. So you can have the most excellent landscape architecture in the world. You can have really rich, fertile soil. You can have a finely maintained sprinkler system. But if any one of those kind of critical elements is off kilter, it's going to impact the whole ecosystem.
Right.
So that's how I like to think about organizations, especially ones that are oriented towards growth, is it's a really kind of finely tuned situation that you have to think broadly about and approach broadly. And just make sure you're kind of properly stewarding all of those pieces and making sure that they fit and they meld together. Because something that works really well in like an established company that has their own kind of competitive advantage in place, may not be the right practice for an organization that's really entrepreneurial in nature.
Yes.
So we help organizations to kind of sort through what is the status of their ecosystem and then, build the practices or the strategy that's needed for their company to turn the corner and really take off.
It's so interesting, like some of the language that you're using, like for instance, grabbing onto the word dream, like, oh, what a yummy word, right? And especially for the entrepreneurial heart. I mean, truly, that's where, what everything orients around, especially for the first couple years or at any pivot point.
Right.
But a dream unfulfilled or a dream that feels so far in the future. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's some frustration that accompanies that. Do you see that with your clients?
Yes. And I think a lot of times it has to do with either pressure that they put on themselves or that their board is putting on them, or even maybe just internally.
I know nothing about that in my own journey.
But I think it really helps to have an external set of eyes that's sort of agnostic to either the history or any of those factors to really kind of help objectively think through like what's going on here. And even a fresh take, I think it's really normal for any of us in many situations to bring our own set of kind of biases or lens to the situation. And, it just helps sometimes to have a different perspective to, get around that.
Clarity is very difficult to find on your own, inside of your own noise, inside of your own head.
Right.
And so 100%, especially if someone is familiar with this kind of ecosystem, as you put it, where you kind of know, okay, I know what to expect. I understand this entrepreneurial personality and these types of cultures.
Right.
I mean, incredibly valuable. So cool. Okay. So when you first engage with someone, where do you start? I mean, how do you go about wrapping your arms around a dream?
Right.
But in a practical way that needs to result in revenue. I mean, you even talked about being a revenue leader. Totally love that phrase. I think I'm stealing that in the future. I'm a revenue leader. Yes, please.
It's so much different than people advertising. It's revenue growth. That's what I focus on. And so many people use that term on their profile or what they do. And we get the blast emails all the time. We grow revenue by 10,000%. Like, well, if that were the case on the clients we have, we wouldn't have to worry about a thing, Anyway.
I know. So where do you start?
Well, I like to start with just where are they at mentally and what is their vision or what is their dream. So I think some leaders, they can tell that they have something or they feel stuck, but not many people actually ever ask them, what is your dream? Where do you want to go? Like if you were to close your eyes 5-10 years from now, what would you want your company to look like or your organization to look like? So that gives me a really good sense of, where their mind is at. Also, it gives me kind of a touchstone to connect where they want to go later on in the process. So I like to start there. And then, of course, where are they feeling it? They've got some kind of reason why they called or, they sometimes have a gut sense of something is off in this area, but they can't quite put their finger on it. So kind of start in those two places.
Go ahead.
The importance of conveying that message to their team as well is huge. Because a lot of owners, especially small business owners we run across, will have that vision and they know what that goal is inside of their head. But for their whole team to be on board and put that on, put the pen to the paper and saying, hey, here's how we're going to execute that vision or goal is a whole different thing. And you cannot do that by yourself usually, unless that's what you're a professional at. And usually they're not.
I think that's such a good point because there's also often two levels of vision, right? So the success vision, right? Maybe that's revenue or reach, that kind of thing. But then you have that vision of impact, coming back to social impact because, speaking for myself and a lot of other entrepreneurs that I know, it's more than just ticking off the zeros and, moving forward. I mean, the stuff that gets very exciting is about changing the world, like making a dent in the universe somewhere based on your point of view. And so, I mean, Kyle, you bring up such a great point about how do you get your team to align around either one, let alone both of them, and then not sound like just a jumbled hot mess trying to communicate that to the people that are going to make it happen.
Yeah. I think in my experience, the involvement of the team in kind of maybe not creating that vision on the front end, but helping it to be clear and clarify it can really help the team understand, where it is we're headed, right? So kind of to bring it from that 30,000 foot level down to something that's a little more tangible that they can wrap their minds around.
Yeah.
That seems to help a lot of times for teams, is to break it down to, from 10 years from now, where do I want to be? Kind of back it out to like this year. What are our top goals? What does that mean for me this quarter? What does that mean for me this week? Which takes, precious time away from all of your day-to-day business activities to do.
Yes.
But
it's not to-do list type of stuff.
Right.
That's
right.
Right.
It's not returning those sales calls. It's not creating that board report or whatever it is. But in my experience, if you have the team with crystal clarity about what it's going to take to get there, and you're kind of keeping everything aligned and the communication lines opened, then you have your greatest asset is your talent, right? Your most expensive asset usually.
Yes.
And they're oriented towards the right target where you're all rowing in the same direction, and you can actually feel like you're making some progress, and then you get some momentum. And it's really exciting, to be in that kind of a
I've
situation.
always told her in sales, it's easy to set those benchmarks and milestones because it's a number. It's in black and
white. It's very
white.
tangible.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in marketing or someone's vision or whatever it may be, it's just out there. And to bring that together takes a special person or mastery of your own that just, is a whole nother thing. And to get everybody on board, like I brought up before.
Yeah. Well, and I love where this is going, because it's that question of how do we know we're making progress? Your word. Because Kyle's right. Yes, you're making progress to revenue. But a perfect example is acceleration of revenue does not just happen because you take one's foot in front of the other. It's because you planted some long-term seeds in the ecosystem that all of a sudden, once they start growing, do really start accelerating. So it's like balancing, okay, what are we doing day to day, to-do list, the things that we have to hit, the numbers we have to hit to stay in business.
Right.
But then are we planting seeds that are going to create, that mythical hockey stick, let's go. It's all really coming together. But that does not happen on accident. So how do you know you're putting the things in place that are going to start really speeding that engine up?
Right. Well, that's a big question. I don't know I have all the answers to that, but I do think a lot of it lands in, for me, two places. So one is how the leader leads the organization and kind of the posture that they take and the way that they set the tone and the culture. And then it's also practices that are sort of day-to-day kinds of things that are, to some extent, they're an outflow of what that is. But, I think some of the places that I've worked before, there's a level of either openness to risk and, some acceptance of the fact that there's going to be, for every success, we're going to have 3 or 4 failures.
Right.
And that
There's
being
a
an
ratio.
accepted thing.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that does start with your leadership team and how they respond to that, because, you cast signals, even if you don't openly shut it down, if you, if you're giving the nonverbal signals that is not a cool thing to happen here, then you're going to some extent shut down the creativity and the innovation of your teams,
100%.
So,
okay. So give me some examples, because I love the idea of this outflow, of that leader's habits that then become, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, forgive me, and, redirect, but almost become cultural habits or maybe organizational strengths that people all move into. So what are some examples?
Well, the way I think about it is very kind of human-centered. So let's say I'm, a top leader, a C-suite leader, if I expect my team members to come to the table with all the answers and they make the presentation and they just really get shot down because they don't have one, answer to one question, then I just think that sets, an expectation that you won't maybe see in any kind of tangible way throughout the organization, but it's definitely there. So if you are able to handle situations with your team members in a way that feels like humility, that feels like coaching, that feels like strength focused and strength building, Those are very subtle things, but I think they do make a huge difference, especially when you're at that C-suite level and, you're so focused on juggling all the different priorities or all the different pressures that your teammates maybe don't understand, the teams that report to you. So it's easy to kind of overlook those things and not pay a lot of attention to those things. But I think at the end of the day, they have a cascading and a more almost like a ripple effect, the further you go down into an organization.
100%. It's interesting. I had this aha moment not too long ago around humility. You were mentioning that. And that humility, or its opposite, is closely tied or not tied to confidence, the confidence of the leader. Because you cannot have a humble posture where you are capable of authentically saying, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Or saying, I don't know how we're going to get there, team, but I bet you guys do. So I'd like to hear your ideas because they might be better than mine. Right. And whether that's explicitly or just implied. Oh my gosh. It's interesting that humility does not flow from a posture of fear and control. It actually is the opposite. So when you're talking about cascading down through the organization, that is very, very different if you're trying to, steer a ship from a posture of confidence and clear direction, vision, versus fear. Like, I'm so scared that everything has to go right. And if we have any mistakes, the ship will sink and people will pick up on that and start also acting in a way that is protection, and CYA,
yes, exactly.
Where it's a mirror of your lack of confidence or a mirror of your own confidence, because then people can embody that and move forward confidently, even learning from their failures, win or learn versus fail and, get in trouble.
Grow or die.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
What's ironic to me about that is that it feels so kind of mushy, like it doesn't have a direct impact on anything sales or revenue related. But to me, it does, because if everything from, like, let's just say you have a product development team and, you want them to come up with, 5 new product ideas. Well, if they don't have the humility to really listen to your customers, or if, they feel like they can just whiteboard it out or look at some report, with data on it, then a lot of times they're not going to come up with the strongest product offering that really resonates in a kind of substantial or meaningful way with those customers, So I think you see it really across the board.
Yeah.
And what's ironic to me also about it is that, in this age that we're in, where the pace of knowledge is so fast, it doubles and, quicker than at any other time in history. We seem to have this expectation of ourselves that we should be keeping up with everything. But one of the insights that I've come across over the last few years, partially because of my experience at Kellogg, is that if you see yourself as the primary vehicle for solving all of those problems, you're actually going to make yourself fall further behind. Because the way that leaders solve problems today is through having a diverse set of relationships that are almost like the gatekeepers to the knowledge that you do need. Because it's physically impossible to stay up with everything you need. Like, think about data science or, all these really kind of technical developments, artificial intelligence.
You can't ignore anymore.
Right,
yes.
right. So you have to be humble enough to realize your own limitations, your strengths that you bring to the table, but you have to be humble enough to realize that you, or even just your team, do not have what it takes to really come up with really salient solutions in the marketplace today by yourself.
This is so cool, because this actually, for me, really hits at home too on your love of people and knowing that they've got special gifts. So for instance, if as a leader, you're looking for gateways to different knowledge, then some are obvious, right? My gateway to financial information is through my CFO. Fine. Or same thing, like technology gateways, people that really own and get excited by that. But it could be also different elements of how you deliver or go to market. I mean,
Right.
from the organization, and scaling of your operations to the marketing aspect and your business development, but looking for people that really flourish in those areas. That's so cool.
Right. Yeah. There's countless numbers of ways that it's beyond just kind of function.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more about just, if you think about any product or service that's developed, it relies on, a bunch of different kind of pieces of insight and anywhere that those come from.
I love that. Okay, so what's some of your favorite work that you've been a part of recently or, like last couple years?
I want to go back to the first 5 minutes in the childhood development, especially with the last year of everything that's gone on. And I don't know what you were working on or how in depth it goes, but you can sense the future and the change and how kids not learn, but how they're going, what tools they're going to use to learn from. And with, I'm not bad-mouthing public schools or anything. My own kids are in public schools. But you see that transition definitely can happen to where they don't have to use that alternative anymore with online learning services and so forth. Now, I don't know what company you're working for or what knowledge you can bring to this, but what do you see, or what are you working on?
Well, one of my clients is focused on improving the early childhood development of a whole area in Dallas. And the way that they're approaching the problem is really a challenging one. It really leverages this idea that we talked about a minute ago with, a diversity of stakeholders, a diversity of voices, and, bringing those groups together to identify what are the key drivers or the factors that are not in place for this whole neighborhood or this whole system to operate optimally,
That is complicated.
It's a very long-term oriented approach to the solution, but it excites me because it's really focused on improving like the ecosystem we talked about before, so that, those families or those kids, they're really in an environment and in a set of, structures and resources and all of that allows them to really take advantage of the opportunity to thrive, as opposed to feeling like some of, everything in those processes, like in the public school onboarding process or, even, things like transportation or healthcare. If those things are set up to be so difficult to access, then it just makes people who are already starting from a place of maybe fewer assets financially speaking, we're not as a society doing a great job with ensuring that those things are really equitable. So I get excited about their work.
For sure. I mean, the little bit that I've read on it, it just seems like if you're at a disadvantage right now and you were forced to go online, which most students were, it's like they're getting left farther behind the curve. And it's like, all right, so how can we fill these gaps and these voids? Because that's, for a long run, that's not sustainable. It's not going to work as a better of a whole, as far as the...
And everybody learns differently.
Yeah.
That's so
And everyone
tricky.
does. And people need the personal interaction sometimes to get through the problems, to have them explained to them on a different level rather than just one particular tool that announces that to them over a screen. They only have so many clicks that they can pick from, to be able to learn that certain subject. And it's like, oh, that's where a teacher is very important.
Well, and sometimes the technology, because we have a client who's in learning and talent. And so these lessons, an ecosystem of learning even apply in the adult world as well. There's this very cool idea that I just am learning about, any of our learning and talent people out there will laugh because it's not a new idea, new to me. But, talking about learning in the flow of work. And it's about, can you provide solutions, learning solutions in 2 clicks or less than a very short amount of time. They have a specific definition of that. But it's fascinating because, they use examples of like airline pilots. No, they can't go back and doing a whole training module.
Right.
Like you need them to have, solutions. Same thing on a manufacturing floor, people where the work cannot stop.
Right.
Just because you have one specific question that you don't recall from training.
Right.
So, I mean, my gosh, it's magnified for kids, but it never really goes away, especially when you're talking about a world where we cannot afford to get stagnant mentally and not try to keep pace with the fact that things are changing and learning and building ecosystems where we can fortify each other's learning and knowledge, because I mean, I love to read, but no, never going to happen that I'm going to be like amazing at data science or early childhood education, or, gosh, the gazillions and zillions of things I am not an expert at.
I can only use it from a personal experience, but the amount of knowledge I've had to absorb in the last 2 years versus the last 10 has been astronomical going on board with her full time. I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing at my age? And then I realize, well, wait a minute.
Completely
You're
blowing
not
up your
growing if you're
life.
not learning. And
Right.
this, and you just see it in people's careers and jobs different than it was 20 years ago. It's like they would get a position in operations management or whatever it may be, and it's like, all right, I can be on cruise control now. I know this subject really well. Well, now it's to the point where if you don't know the next best technology to add to what you already know, you're left behind in 5 years. Your job's obsolete. You have to be learning consistently until so people never retire up here. But, until you're done with what you're going to do at that profession, you've got to stay on the game.
Can you even think how many people, say for those that are in their 20s and 30s, how many times their careers and their existing professions will literally be gone a couple times over by the time they retire?
Right.
It used to be 7 different career.
But changes,
this was how many years ago? Career changes.
I would argue that some people's positions will be obliterated. This may or may not be true, but it was interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with a gentleman, and he was telling his son, in that fatherly way, and his son is in his 20s into his career, and he's in customer service for a large technology company. And the dad is saying, son, you need to broaden your horizons because those bots are going to replace you soon, and there is going to be no such thing as human customer service in your industry. And the son is like, no. And who knows which one of them is right? But there is a very good chance that certain roles in certain industries will simply be eliminated. And you've got to stay on top of a willingness to learn.
Right.
I look at learning being kind of like a financial profile now, portfolio, where it's like you better be diverse in it on your long-term game.
Oh, I like that.
Because if not, there's going to be a certain point that's not going to be the same 10 years.
Now, this is a
down
very
the road.
cool idea. Why am I only just the first time
That's
hearing
why we're
about
doing this. Yeah. It's different. It's different when we're on the patio.
This is really
drinking
date night for you guys.
a beverage somewhere.
We
But
are all about weird conversations, but I'm like, this one is totally
most of them aren't
new.
recorded. But
Thank God. Oh my gosh, if we ever get brave enough to have a podcast with cocktails.
it would have to be called something
Everybody.
else. Caffeine doesn't.
Okay, so but talking about learning, your MBA did not happen straight out of college. And it's
No.
funny because when I was back in school, I graduated college in 98. And
Me too.
There was, what? Oh my gosh, you're way younger than me. So, but there was this idea, I don't know if you were given this advice, but I love to learn. I'm such a nerd. But many of my professors were like, no, you do not get your MBA straight out of your undergrad.
Yes, I heard the same.
You go back, but that's not, there's a lot of people that have just blown that up and been like, nope, not ready to graduate. I love to learn. I'm staying in my MBA. Like, okay, so tell me, number one, what was it like to go back? Why did you go back, and then we'll get into
There are
some more.
certain fields, though, I think that applies to.
Oh, yeah, some have to.
Science.
Finance.
yeah,
No, I mean, but-
anything like that.
agreed.
That's more kind of technical in nature.
Yes,
that makes
exactly.
sense, yes. Well, the program that I participated in was an executive MBA program, which, they're all over the place now. But what I liked about it is that everybody in my cohort was an experienced leader.
Yeah.
They already had at least a decade or so of management or leadership experience. So I felt confident that I would get a lot of value from just being in classes with people who had, learned a lot just through the school of hard knocks.
And did that turn out to be true?
It was amazing. Yes.
Nice.
Actually, I knew that at this point, if I wanted to really grow consulting, I needed to have just another level of confidence with the knowledge base. Basically, I felt like I had some strong intuition and experience to draw off of. But I found myself a lot of times wondering, like second guessing myself, essentially. Is this just my intuition and my experience, or is this really something that's sort of more broadly true, like frameworks and things of that nature that kind of help ground you in, some confidence that you're not overlooking. So it's
confirmation that I do know it.
A lot of times, yes. And then you get into things like finance, which I had no background in. Oh. And it was a steep learning curve.
Okay. You were forced to learn that part of it.
But, now I really see the value in understanding all of that. It's almost like now I can speak the language of business and understand
100%.
How it all fits together.
That is one of my beefs with marketing at large. Like I do some speaking about marketing ROI, and it's that marketers don't speak the language of business. And it's very dangerous for marketers' careers. It's very dangerous for businesses to not be able to have a language bridge into what success as defined by a marketer means as a success defined by the total business. So I love that you're talking about that, because I'm like, I promise I will not preach now. I know he's got his eyebrows up like, okay, sister, not today.
No, if you're in a room of creatives and they're all excited and you can see the glow in their eyes, just bring up budget.
Oh,
and it's like, whoa, hold on, huh? You can't do it. That's why.
So true. That's what strategists and CMOs are for.
Yeah, that's when you're like, all right, I'm going to put a number to this mind of yours. No, don't do that. Then it's more pressure.
I know, totally.
No offense to any creatives out there. But.
No, we totally love you.
Yeah. Here's where we need to go. Get us there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what was your big, I know it can't be drilled down to one, but if you were kind of summarizing like what your MBA gave you, you already mentioned confidence, but just, was it fun? Was it this? How did it change things for you? Or just talk to us a little bit about, what happened through it all.
Well, the program I participated in was a little different. It was focused on more broadly developing leaders, and largely based on this topic I mentioned earlier about like the power of your network and how important it is for leaders in this age. They intentionally designed the program at Kellogg to really equip you for that. So everybody there, about half of the people end up flying in. When I started, it's different now. But anyway, you spend a lot of time together because you all stay in the kind of Kellogg hotel there. Yes, so you really get to know people, and you leave with friends. It's not just people you sat in class with. So I think through that experience, obviously I got to know a lot more about the different key areas of business. Like I already had a pretty good foundation with marketing, but, got to confirm that and, be exposed to some, additional strategies and ways of thinking about it. But I think the broader, most meaningful, significant piece of it was leaving with this cohort of 70 people that now today, if I wanted to start a new company, like I'm doing some product development work right now, I don't need to really second guess the fact that I can make that happen, right? Yeah. I know people who I can turn to ask the questions that would have maybe held me back in the past, So let's just say, I've got 2/3 of it I feel like I have a pretty good handle on, but I just don't know how to like source this thing or like build out the operations piece because that's just not my area of experience. Well, now today I know, first of all, enough about operations to speak broadly in that language and how to find the people that can help make it happen, So I think it's generally both of those things. It's understanding the fundamentals of all of those key pieces of that makes a business really, be able to be viable, as well as the confidence personally, but also the confidence in the ability to take a business from here to where you want it to go, through that network. And that's not really a Kellogg thing. It's really just a personal relationship building thing, just happens to have happened in that context.
100%. As much as things change, the more they stay the same when it comes to the bonds of humanity and how business and how real problem solving, real innovation happens, doesn't happen like locked in a tiny little closet, by yourself. It doesn't. I mean, the world is built because of connection. So I love that. That's so fun.
We had the Fratos on not long ago, and that conversation was brought up about it's when you live and learn, it's easier to learn off someone else's mistakes and to be, mentor. We were talking about mentorship, right? Yep. How crucial it is to have not only one mentor, but people you can call on and just be like, all right, they know it. It's difficult. How many times do you make the decision? And you do have to have failures to grow in life and to learn in life, but to minimize those failures, to know you can count on something is a whole nother thing. And 100%. In a business I owned before, it was like I'd always just like, I keep it, I know my way, I know this will work or whatever, and I'm like, picking up the phone would have been a lot easier,
right?
Why do I keep going through this?
Same.
And now
here.
we really do. It's not just delegating; it's just having the confidence to call on that person
and to say, I don't know.
Or groups and don't know.
I used to literally say, why didn't I ever have a mentor? And I used to be so sad about the fact I'd hear these stories about people that were just loved up, in their corporate environment through these amazing leaders. And I used to wonder, well, why didn't that show up in my life? Well, I'm pretty sure it's because I wouldn't let it.
It takes a lot of trust also.
Exactly.
And when you're young, you don't want to always trust.
And I was so scared
I don't know that person. Well, look at their track record. Look at, do some research.
And being scared that people would judge me, right? I mean, that fraud syndrome of...
imposter syndrome?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Like, am I good enough or I'm not good enough and people are going to figure it out. So if I ask even one dumb question, out.
Right.
You're out.
That's a real thing.
So it is. And I mean, if you... Of course, I'd heard that term, but I did not know that that was so my blind spot, and it's...
Well, and I think it also has to do with the people that are around you. Like, they have to have the humility, too, to not feel threatened by others and invest in them, and I think that, and I think about 10, 15 years ago, this just wasn't as common.
No, it was
honestly,
not. I agree. I agree.
Not to go down these metaphors, I just thought of this. It's like finding the right gym. I don't want to go to Gold's Gym with a bunch of meatheads swallowed up to here, but
because it's not your tribe.
And it's like with, finding the right mentor, you'll find it. Just keep on going to different ones until you do, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and they say, what is that saying? When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Okay.
And I mean that I've laughed.
Who said that?
I don't
pretty
know
good.
Because it's so good. I've had it repeated to me because people have said kind of, and I'm like, I would have been helpful to learn that 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is some of your favorite work? Like, we started going down that path, but like, what are some of your favorite projects?
Well, the one that I, thought about as we were talking about this time today, it was actually the one that I worked on with your team, with Eric.
Yes.
And that was a really fun project. It was a small professional services firm. And, I can't get into the details of the business and all that. However, I can say that, they had this hidden gem of a service that sort of organically they figured out, wow, we really have something here.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to scale it. And, the CEO certainly knows the business very well. But, knowing how to scale or grow is a different thing, right?
Yes.
So we had the chance to work with their team to really, explore and kind of hone in on that product market fit and then turn the corner to really operationalizing it. So, developing that just full go-to-market strategy and plan, everything from pricing, that works both internally from a margin perspective as well as for their customers.
Yes.
And then just, developing that initial kit of tools that they needed to be able to approach global companies. So it was really neat to see them through that process start to think through a lot of these questions and, just feel increased confidence that they could go to these just new global companies and feel like they could go to bat with the big guys, you know?
And when you know what to say, and when you have things you can point to, it is a game changer. I mean, really, when that system's in place where you don't let your fear and your emotion get in the way of going after the kind of business that you know you can be impactful in. Oh, so exciting.
Yeah, one of the things Eric said in the process that I thought was really spot on was that, you know, updating some of your messaging, your content, your website, and all of that, that really just, you know, legitimizes your message, right? So it kind of lets you get the ticket to enter the door to have the conversation. And then in my experience, once you get there and you know how to, you know, ask the right questions and just start that relationship in the right way, you know, your expertise and all of the benefit that you can bring, that shines. You know, your team knows all that stuff. And as a leader, you know it. But, you know, getting from that point of not understanding or not having that confidence to feeling like you can sit at that table and prepared, it seems like it's not transformational necessarily.
It is.
Seems like a small thing, but really it's a big thing.
Because then you can train that, you can teach that, you can share that. So new people come in and you get them up to speed very quickly. You're not just reinventing the wheel or praying. And I see this so frequently. I pray this is a good salesperson. Well, why don't you set them up for success on the front end, you know, versus expecting they're going to come in and wave a magic wand over your business development system and transform and scale your growth. They might be amazing, but they're only going to be amazing with the number of hours they have in a day. But if you give them tools, totally different.
And a lot of great salespeople are not going to want to join and build everything totally from scratch.
100%. So true, because they can make more money if they get to
and they want to be successful and they want to be able to get that commission.
Not really to put words in your mouth, but what a gratifying position you're in. A lot of times it seems like you're finding a smaller business who has great products or just like a special type of thing to bring to market, and they just sometimes, and we see this also, that's why I'm kind of putting words in her mouth, but where they just don't know exactly how to enter the right price points or getting their message across just the right way. And they're like, oh my gosh, what do? I know this will work. They're sitting at home going, oh, this is going to make me. And they're like, but now what? And you bring the now what to them and say, this is now what? And to watch them take their baby and go, all right, put this baby out there to the public and make it happen for me.
It goes back to the word that she said earlier, the dream. You know, I mean, like changing it from a dream to reality and, you know, giving people the confidence to put the things in place where they know it's progress. Like awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I see is that some business leaders, they might be a true expert in whatever that lane of their business is. And they already have a lot of times the understanding of their customer or their potential customer, but it's really just helping kind of change the lens of how to, you know, have that initial engagement conversation and kind of have the mindset shift of how to empathize and kind of connect the dots, you know, how we can really partner together. So it becomes not a sales conversation. It becomes a partnership conversation.
Amen.
You know?
Yes. You know, it's interesting. One of the other things that you kind of touched on is you're talking about when somebody has something that brings profound value or they're amazing at what they do. But the problem is just because you're amazing doesn't mean you're going to be successful, right? And I've seen that so often, you know, that frustration of why are people not beating down my door? We can reduce risk or make them tons of money or impact their profit or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do all of these amazing things, and entrepreneurs especially get so confused as to why, you know, they built it, but they didn't come, you know, like that, like the movie says. And, you know, I think that's so key. What you're talking about is that, I mean, you've still got to build the processes that allow you a seat at the table. You know, it's not just that you're great. I mean, there's got to be all of the different connecting points that help people understand that.
And I think I've also seen through some of my cohort Kellogg's from the MBA program is that you also a lot of times see, especially in technology, oh, we can do this now.
Yes.
We have the capability to do this. So let's do it, And sometimes that works out. But a lot of times what can happen is that just because you have the capability to do something doesn't mean it's something that your customer really wants or needs, So then
what?
To me, it goes back all the way back to the basis of marketing, which is what are the true kind of needs, frustrations, pain points, and goals of your customer. And if you can develop this really nuanced, rich understanding of what that is, then just a whole world of opportunities is unlocked.
Yeah, we see it on our digital side. It's like, okay, you can collect all this data, but now what are you going to do with
Right.
it? We have all this data. And they're like, oh, wow, you can make it look great in a presentation, but where do you go? What do you do with it now? How do you, and that's what people are having tough time with.
Buying is emotional. It does not matter
That's
what
right.
kind of transaction you are talking about. Nonprofit, where it's a donation
Right.
or fundraising,
Right.
the receipt of that, business to business, where it's not really your money, but it is your reputation
Right.
on the line, whether or not
your
it worked.
success.
Pack of gum, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, but transactions are emotional. I mean, for some reason, we knit into ourselves, who we are
Right.
based on what we decide to pay for.
Right.
Period. And,
Yes.
and for people to just, come on, people, get it. Like, please hear me. The sales is about
There's
emotion.
a lot of brain science in support of what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. Before
Yes.
you were out of the room before we turned the mics on, I was telling Nicole about, the consumer base and that impulse buying.
Oh, my
now,
God.
I really like that because
We've
it's a
got
lot
to do
of
a
it's
whole show on this
psychology.
because it's fascinating.
Yeah. Not
this
to get
is,
too far down the
This
rabbit
is your, I know,
hole,
that's
but
definitely your
it was fun
hotspot.
to see
I
how
don't think,
different
like,
things
that's
would
amazing.
work on not just positioning, but eye levels and
Tiny details.
Yeah, you're like, okay, they'll stand at a counter right here, all estimated 20 seconds, and where are they going to look, and this, that, and the other, and you're like, oh my gosh, it works. Like, it's creepy how you can read someone's mind and not even know them, depending on what demographic you're in.
To your point, though, it's interesting because I think sometimes those teeny shifts are not just about impulse buying, but they can apply to the B2B or the nonprofit world. Like it's not really a case study, but, one story about and this is business to consumer, about the store that changed, hi, can I help you? To have you ever been here before? Is transformational to how those sales reps. But the same thing happens when you choreograph a sales conversation. How you open the conversation, small little details about where do you sit at a boardroom table with the prospect. Just hack to the audience. Never line up you versus them. Never.
Oppositional.
Yes, exactly. In tiny details.
That's not why we do this.
No, this is about camera angles. This is where the tech nerd gets to control the situation. But so much, because it is about emotion, but those tiny switches that help people understand you faster, like you faster, get it faster. Innovation is not always never
I didn't
thought of
see
this before, but just better service.
I
towards
didn't
people.
look to see if you pulled up an electric car or not.
No.
But
I would love one.
if you get gas,
we would too.
If
Not
you ever
yet.
go to Quick Trip and get gasoline, you notice on the way out when they give you the money, they don't say thanks for coming. They'll say we'll see you next time. Or
Every
that's
time.
what they say, right?
It is. Every time.
Yeah, every time you're like, oh. As many people that go through there, because it's, the busiest gas station there is probably.
Around here,
you
for
feel
sure.
like a personal connection of, whether it be that or not, but it does something different.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you looking around in 2021, we are still, at the end of the pandemic, or hopefully we're at the end, however we want to say that, whatever.
Getting better.
It's getting better. I know.
We're dealing with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are all getting better at dealing with it. I actually love that point of view.
Well, people getting vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what kind of encouragement or advice, like when you look around at the world, what do you think, I wish people would know this or, think this way? I mean, what kind of advice or encouragement would you give to people on the street or business people, anything? Really super open-ended.
Well, I have a lot of tactical advice I could give, but I knew you were going to ask this, so I did a little pre-thinking about it. And I think what I wish was more kind of widespread was, the ability of our senior leaders to approach their work as a steward of the culture of the team. I think as a senior leader, one of the things I've noticed is that you don't get a lot of questions. You don't get a lot of people challenging you.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, maybe you haven't kind of signaled that you're open to that, or people aren't used to doing that. But I think what that means is that you have to be more intentional about how you build your team. And so, we all heard this news this week about, the spa, and there's just continuing focus and just awareness on racial inequity and other manifestations of that.
Right.
And, as I think about that, there have been really a lot of moves in corporate America, especially also in the nonprofit sector, around diversity. But to me, that's not enough. So I guess I would challenge senior leaders. Yes, you need to be focused on doing what you can as you kind of bring your team together, but that's really not enough. We as senior leaders, we need to be creating spaces that allow people to really share their perspectives with confidence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter if you have, 20 different kinds of people at the table with all of the depth of knowledge that they can contribute to better solutions for the marketplace. If they don't feel like they can really truly speak up without being shot down, or that their perspective isn't going to be valued, then in some sense it's all for naught, right? Because you're not kind of, stewarding that environment in a way that actually brings forth the full potential that's there. So I think that is a message that a lot of senior leaders don't get challenged on enough, is that you are really responsible for setting the cadence and the culture of the organization, and the way that you set forth those silent expectations really can have a humongous impact on, yes, the power of those humans in those seats and their ability to realize their potential, but also your organization and its potential to reach where you want it to go to.
I love this idea. It's really leaders helping people to find their voice, but not someday, not conceptually, but literally every day opening their mouth and being a valued participant because the leader created that space. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think as the leader, you have the responsibility to sort of go first and model and set that. And if you don't, then
I love this.
You
get what you give.
It's about, making your employees feel that sense of accomplishment. And you guys kind of touched base a little bit on how you don't want to have an employee cringe up or feel like, if I do something wrong, it's everything's negative. You want it to be positive,
right?
To all you senior leaders out there, leave your egos at home. Then, basically, I mean, you gotta just say, no, I can't bring this power I have within myself to the table all day at work, or it's not, it's not going to be good for my team.
Or see yourself as stewarding the power towards cultivating this environment. Because there is power for sure. But
I've worked for 2 corporate companies that were pretty big, and you would notice whenever someone new would be in upper management and get hired, they would pick 1 or 2 people, and I don't think they knew at the time the people they picked, and the ones that resonated right off the bat had this energy about them and asked the question and wanted a real answer to, versus the ones who walked in and said, well, now my time is to be a leader, and they went into it demanding. That was their form of leadership. Now, it may have worked in the position they were before. It got them that new role. But for the long run, it was just so pleasant being around those people that were just asked for honest input and you could give an honest answer to.
Right.
We onboarded a new client just the other day. And we all got off the call, and every single one of us on our team was wow, we love these guys.
It wasn't just one person.
No.
You could tell every person in their group had
It
that
was so
same
cool.
energy, and you knew it came from the up.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we can't say his name, but
No, but it did come from the CEO.
yeah,
the
Right.
CEO.
but it just trickled down.
It was
to
incredible.
where everyone felt like, oh, this is our next goal we are going to accomplish. Not that our company needs to. Well, they do inevitably, but we are all going to have a huge role and part in this.
It was
Where do
cool.
we fit in, and let's go do it. It was really neat.
It was the
You know.
perfect balance of everybody having a voice without sacrificing the need to have financial performance
Right.
and accelerated revenue growth.
Right.
And they were all so excited because of like, it was, it really was a scenario of what you're talking about. And man, just to be around that energy was amazing. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is going to be exciting because while yes, we're going to bring value to them, we're going to benefit from everything we
Right.
learn and watch them do naturally too.
Culturally, yeah.
Culturally, yeah, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So I love that, Nicole. Like such a great, amazing, and optimistic, but practical. Like final note, we can and all should be doing that.
That's great.
I know.
Yeah, it's not easy work, but I think it's worth it.
It's the right work. Yeah, I love it.
Is that your vision then? Pretty much? Like, that's your end game is people.
Kind of your why.
Yeah, your why.
I
That's
know.
neat.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's hard to articulate, but yeah, it's all based in that dignity and worth and strength of people.
Oh, beautiful. Well, there's no way we can keep going after that because
No.
that is the perfect way to wrap it. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for bringing so much heart to the business world and to this conversation. So it's just been amazing having
Yeah,
this
thanks
with
for the
you.
opportunity. It's
Absolutely.
been great.
Where
to
can
chat
people
with
find
guys.
you? in
Yes,
your company?
thank you so much.
Yes. So our website is socialcatalytics.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn if you just Google or put in LinkedIn, Nicole Rush.
Nicole with an H.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, exactly. So definitely, obviously follow worthy. I don't have to plug you any more than just, the heart that you've already shown. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
That's great.
Onward and upward. Onward and upward, everybody. My goodness.
That's great.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Thanks.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Corporate Caffeine Podcast, please help us help you by subscribing. I also hope you'll find us on social media. You can follow me, Dacia Coffee, and my company, The Marketing Blender, by searching us on your favorite platform or checking out the show notes for the links. We bring this to you because we envision a business world full of meaning, connection, and prosperity for us all. Until next time, onward and upward.